Alright, Chapter 6, Section 1. I'm going to do 4 problems to help you out a little bit today. Look at 2 problems where they ask you to solve a triangle using the law of sines. It doesn't tell us that, but we'll have to identify that. And of course, I do the problems where you're going to have 2 sides given to you, which means I have to worry about the 0 triangles, the 1 triangle, the 2 triangle thing. That's usually the most difficult one. So 2 problems like that. Take a look at one where they're asking us to find the area of a triangle, which we have a formula for that. And then it's like problem number 39. You'll see the picture looks very much the same. I'm going to show you how, or kind of remind you, we did a problem similar to this in a previous chapter. I'll show you how I did that and see if you can remember to help you out. Alright, so tells us to solve the triangle. In other words, I want to know all 3 angles, all 3 sides. And of course, they give us 3 pieces of information. You do not have to draw a triangle, but you can if you want to. And like I told you in class, this is just something to look at. You'll notice that every time I draw the right triangle, it looks like it's an equilateral triangle, even though it most likely isn't. Angle A is 60 degrees. It's just something for me to look at. Side A is 9, and side C is 10. And so the first thing that I should be able to identify is that I have an angle and the side across from it, and that is what's telling me to use the law of sines. So that's the first thing I identify, because when it's on the test, we're going to have more than just the law of sines, and I'm not going to say, hey, use the law of sines. You're going to have to know that. So that's what I'm looking for. Angle, side across from it. Got it. All right, next thing I check after that is, did they give me 2 angles or 2 sides? Because if they gave me 2 angles, that's great. I solve it, I have 1 answer, I'm done. They gave me 2 sides, which means I had that possibility of not having a triangle, having 1 triangle, or having 2 triangles. And I really won't know until I try to solve it. So the first thing and only thing I can find right now, using those 2, using this side, I'm going to be finding angle C. So I'm going to start to set that up. So I'm going to say the sine of 60 degrees divided by side A, which is 9, is equal to the sine of C divided by 10. And I'm going to, of course, somewhat cross multiply. I'm going to bring the 10 over here and say that the sine of C is equal to 10 times the sine of 60 divided by 9. And like what I said in classes, I would like you to give me this decimal, so before you actually type everything in your calculator. So go ahead and find the sine of 60 now. If you've been messing around changing your calculator into degrees and radians like I have, you want to make sure that you put this back in degrees. This will throw your answer off if you don't. Alright, so I have the sine of 60 degrees, which is something obviously we should know off our head. It's the square root of 3 over 2. There's the decimal approximation for it. Times 10 divided by 9. And I want you to write that decimal place out. Don't have to go all the way. I'm just going to say 9, 6, and then say dot, dot, dot to show me that, yeah, there's more. I'm just not going to write it. I need to do the sine inverse to find angle C. So angle C is going to be approximately, we'll round this to 1 decimal place, sine inverse. Remember, if you want to, instead of having to type that whole thing in, if you hit second and then the minus sign that says answer just above it, if you hit that, it'll say answer. It means the previous answer. Go ahead and hit enter, and it looks like it's 74.2 degrees. So there's angle C. You're going to want to star that one. That's going to be important. I need to know that number. That's going to help me find the second triangle if it's possible. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to find, if I know angle A and I know angle C, angle B should be pretty easy. I know that it's 180 minus 60 minus 74.2. So angle B, I'll write it up here, is going to be approximately 180 minus 74.2 minus 60. It looks like it's approximately 45.8. Alright, there's the second thing. The only thing I'm missing now is what side B is. And again, I would use the 2 things that you were given originally. So I'm going to say it's the sine of 60 divided by 9 is equal to the sine of angle B, which I know is 45.8, divided by side B. And now I'll quick calculate that out. I'll multiply both sides by D. I'll multiply by the reciprocal, so that I get B is equal to 9 times the sine of 45.8 divided by the sine of 60. And now I can type all of this in. And I'm going to start with the sine of 45.8, hit enter, divided by the sine of 60, hit enter, and then I'll multiply by 9, and it looks like it's approximately 7.45. And if you rounded to 1 decimal place, that's fine. So there's one triangle for sure. Now, I don't have the little picture like I had in class to look at for how do I know the second triangle. You just have to kind of remember the rule. The reason I starred this when we looked at that little diagram in class is because we said that if a second triangle is possible, angle C, whichever one you found first, which was angle C, in the second triangle will always be 180 minus angle C in the first triangle. So I'm going to say it's 180 minus 74.2, which if that's the case, angle C in the second triangle is going to be 105.8. Now when you're doing this and you're trying to find the second triangle, all this work that you've done over here, basically ignore it. The only thing that you should be paying attention to is the three things that you were given. So if angle C is equal to 105 and they told me angle A was equal to 60, well then how would I find angle B? Same way you did before. You would take 180 minus 60, the one you're given, minus the one you just found, 105.8, and whatever's left over is your angle B. So 180 minus 60 minus 105.8 ends up giving me 14.2 degrees. I've got all three angles now. I've got two sides. What am I missing? I'm missing side B. So I'm going to set that up. And again, use the two things that they gave you. So I'm going to say that's the sine of 60 divided by 9 is equal to the sine of angle B, which we said was 14.2 divided by B. Cross multiply and solve for B. The 9 would go up to the numerator. It's going to be 9 times the sine of 14.2 divided by the sine of 60. After you cross multiply, you'd eventually divide. And now I'll type this all in. And B is approximately, let's see here, sine of 14.2 divided by the sine of 60. Multiply it by 9, and it looks like it's 2.55. And we don't have any units on here, so I don't know if it's feet, meters. It's not important for this particular problem. So there it is. You solve the first triangle, whatever the first thing is you find, and this is only if you have two sides given to you. If you had two angles, you just have one triangle. Star that because that's how you're going to find angle C or whatever angle it is in the second triangle. Alright, so looking at the second example, it's very, very similar. They gave me basically the same information. I'm going to go ahead and draw myself a triangle again just so I have something to look at. Here's angle C, A, B. They don't, oh, I guess it's D, isn't it? You can label these kind of however you want, C, D, and they don't give me the third variable, so I pick A. There's angle C. Side C is 125 and side D is 100. So when you look at it, I again know I need to use the law of sines because I have an angle on the side across from it. And according to what I'm given two sides, which means I have to worry about this 0, 1, or 2 triangles thing. So the thing I have to find first is going to be angle D. It's this angle across from the side. So doing the same thing we did before, it's the sine of 110 divided by 125 is equal to the sine of D over 100. And I'm going to get the sine of D is equal to, if I cross multiply, 100 times the sine of 110 over 125. And again, please tell me what that decimal is so I can see it. Sine of 110 times 100 divided by 125 is eventually going to give me 0.75 ... If that number is bigger than 1 or less than -1, that's when you type the sine inverse, you get an error. That would mean that you have no triangle. So that's usually easy to see. Alright, I'm typing in sine inverse. Again, make sure you're in degree mode. 0.75, or I guess I'm just going to say previous answer. Hit enter, and I'm going to end up with angle D being approximately 48.7 degrees, and we'll just round to one decimal place for this. And again, this is something that I want to star, because when I go to check for the second triangle, I need to use that number. Alright, I now have angle C, I have angle D, I'm only missing angle A, so let's quickly figure that out. It's 180 minus the other two, so minus 110 minus 48.7. And that's going to give me minus 110 minus 48.7. That ends up giving me 21.3. So now I've got all three sides. The only thing I'm missing is side A. So again, use the two things you're given. Say sine of 110 divided by 125 is equal to the sine of angle A, which we found to be 21.3. Whoops, sine of it, divided by side A. Cross multiply and solve for A, so A comes here, multiply by the reciprocal, 125, sine of 21.3 over sine of 110, and plug all that information in. Sine of 21.3 times 125 divided by 110 ends up giving me 4.54. And so now I know there's definitely one triangle. Now I'm going to check to see, is there a second triangle or not? And hopefully when we did this in class that made sense to you. If anything, I hope you were at least able to identify why we always take this number and subtract from 180. So angle D in the second triangle, if it's possible, is 180 minus 48.7. Now you keep hearing me say if it's possible, and you're saying, how do I know if it's possible? You're going to see in this problem that it's not going to work. If I do that, angle D in the second triangle is going to end up being 131.3 degrees. All right, now remember we're going to cover up all this work that we've done. Keep the stuff that's given. If angle D is 131.3, angle C is 110, we have a little bit of a problem. We are already over 180, which means the second triangle doesn't actually exist. Up here when I subtracted, I got 105. 105, 60, those two added together is less than 180. So adding those together, I get 165. That's less than 180. There was enough left over for a third degree. Here, there wasn't. So that's kind of the difference. Hopefully that makes sense. I know that can be tricky. All right, moving on to the third problem, asking us to find the area. The formula that we had for area was K was equal to 1/2 AB sine of C. In other words, I needed two side lengths and I needed the angle in between them. And that's exactly what I've got. I've got two side lengths and I've got the angle in between it. You probably are seeing that and saying, oh man, that means I have to deal with the degrees, minutes, seconds thing again. So yeah, this problem is not difficult. It's just remembering how to convert that. So one of my side lengths is 16. The other is 20. And now I want to find the sine of 84 degrees 30 minutes. So remembering how to do that, you want to hit second and alpha. So I'm going to type in the sine of 84 second apps button. There's the degrees, 30 minutes, pick number 2, hit enter, and we've got it. And now I just need to multiply by these. So multiply by 20 times 16 times 0.5. And it looks like my area is going to be approximately 159.26 square units, since they don't give us any units. Alright, and then the last one I want to run through. We did one like this in chapter 4. You might remember anytime I said you have we always said if you had a right triangle, it actually doesn't matter if it's a right triangle or not. This is not a right triangle, don't assume. If they give you a triangle that's kind of off at an angle like this, if it's hard to see, this is 31 degrees, this little angle here. This entire thing is 83 degrees. That's 57. You might remember I said a good strategy is to draw a right triangle or a rectangle around the entire thing so that all of these are right angles. And then what you can do is you can just start filling in the information until you have the information you need. So for example, if that's 31 degrees and that's a right angle, then I know if I take 90 minus 31 that I should have this angle be 59 degrees. If this is a right triangle and that's 57, and take 90 minus 57, and I can quickly figure out that this is 33 degrees. This is a straight line, which means this should be 180. So if I take 180, subtract 33, subtract 59, I can find out that this angle is actually 88 degrees. And now if you look at it, since they told you the entire thing here was 83 and this was 31, let me draw this triangle here. That means this actual angle, if I subtract those two, is 52 degrees. We found out that this was 88 degrees. I can figure this out. I actually don't need to. I know this side length is 38. It's asking me to find BC, which is right here. So it's asking me to find that side length. And now you can see I've got enough information to use my law of sines. I've got an angle and the side across from it. And then I've got an other piece of information and I'm looking for the side across from it. So I can now say it's the sine of 88 divided by 138 is equal to the sine of 52 divided by x. And now when I go to cross multiply and solve, I get x is equal to, remember I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, it's going to be 138 times the sine of 52 all over the sine of 88. And now I'll of course type that in my calculator, and sine 52 divided by sine of 88 times 138 is going to give me approximately a distance of 108.8, and again there's, I guess we do have, I'm assuming that means meters, I guess it could be miles, we'll just say m. And there's my distance. So the idea is, and I think this goes along with number 39, whenever you have a triangle that's kind of at an angle like that, even if it's not, draw a rectangle around it and just start filling in angles until you figure out what you're looking for. There is your homework help for section 6.1. Let me know if you need extra help.